Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Nick Shaw, it's great to have you on, the CEO and co-founder of Renaissance Periodization, my new sponsor. So this is planned to have you on anyway, but the timing, it's not exactly a coincidence. And you're also an IFBB Pro, which will be relevant to what we talk about, and the author of the book Fit for Success. So it's great to have you on, my friend.
Well, what is up, man? Great to be here. I think I've been on one other time, right?
Yeah, you've been on before at least once.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I mean, RP is well represented. We recently had Dr. Mike Israetel was on, Dr. Crystal Guevara was on recently, and they've both been on multiple
Yep.
times. So, and obviously, anybody listening, at some point in this, my producer will stuff the ad in for RP and you'll hear it. But, I'll say some stuff again. I have been, immersed in the RP ecosystem for many years. I've been consuming certainly Mike and RP's media for years. Mike came to Edmonton in 2017. I met him, got to have dinner with him. I hung out attended RP stuff in 2018, 2019 in Calgary. You asked me to beta test your, at the time, the RP nutrition certification, which I think is the best. I love it. I think it's incredible. Now it's going to be folded into something bigger. So for me to say, we were recently in Dallas, and for you to turn around and be interested in this, I'm like, this is a no-brainer for me, right?
Totally. 100%, man. Yeah. No, I mean, we go way back. I mean, shoot, almost a decade, right? I mean,
When it really,
it's been a
amounts
while.
to it. Yeah, exactly. And, you and I personally, we've spoken at multiple events. We were just in Dallas together at Raise the Bar. I will be attending because I spoke a couple years ago, but you are speaking at the Real Coaches Summit. Shout out to our buddy Aram Gregorian. That's
Yep.
going to be like 2 weeks
So is
here.
Crystal. Yep. Crystal will be there.
Yep, and Chris will be speaking, so the lineup there is great. So this actually sort of sets a table for this because I wanted to dive into a lot of the stuff that you do, the habits of behavior, the mindsets that set you up to be able to stay consistent despite the varied stuff. And for context, again, you run Renaissance Periodization. You're a husband, you're a dad, right? Training's non-negotiable. How do you set yourself up to make your nutrition and training work?
Yeah. I think probably the biggest thing, if you go back to like, all right, what is really square one? And I'm sure you hear this all the time because you probably work a bit more with like Gen Pop type folks than RP does. We tend to be for people that are kind of already into lifting a little bit. Good way to phrase it. But there's a lot of people that say they want to get in shape. They say they want to do something. Hey, I want to start working out. I want to start, eating better, but they don't really make it a priority. So I think it just starts with like, what are you actually trying to do? And just being real with yourself, your goals, your timelines and all that, just coming in with that expectations. And so for me, it's just it's a priority. My lifting is always a priority. Uh, you know, Andrew, we've trained together in Dallas, right? For the last 2 years when we were at Raise the
Yep.
Bar. Like fitness is a priority for us. Like we kind of plan it into our schedules. So for me, it's, I get up, I take my daughter to school in the morning, come home, usually go for a walk, usually with my wife, usually with the dog, and then come back, answer a few emails or something, and then I lift. And that's like sort of my time. Kind of block out like 9 to 11 is sort of this is when I'm going to train almost every single day. And I'm pretty well regimented in that. I've been doing it. That's just when I like to lift. I don't like to lift later in the day. Man, that's usually when like I'm doing work calls, meetings, Zooms, like recording this podcast, something like that. And I've personally found, this is just me, and I think this will resonate with a lot of people. If you wait and try to do your stuff after work or in the evening, life gets in the way. There's a lot of shit that pops up. And so I would probably encourage people that want to make it a priority, try to do it earlier in the day. I'm not saying you have to. I'm not saying you got to be, the hardcore wake up at 4 in the morning and go do that. Listen, if you can and want to, awesome. I tried that during the COVID. I like got up every day at like 4:57 because I was like, yeah, I'm the man. I'm gonna get up like 2 minutes before five. People that
Jocko
get up at
would be
five or later.
proud. Jocko would be proud.
I was hardcore into his podcast. I listened to his podcast all the time. I had a couple of his shirts. I started training jujitsu because of his podcast. I was totally in that mindset, and I did it for a really long time. And then the funniest thing happened is I think like my family came down and I kind of got thrown off my like routine, and I didn't wake up early.
This episode is brought to you by Renaissance Periodization and the RP Hypertrophy app. RP is the industry leader in muscle building, coaching, and education. This app is like having a coach in your pocket. It gives you everything you need, including training programs, form videos. It gives you all your sets, reps, and weights, so you just show up and follow the plan. It adjusts each week based off your progress. And the app was created by Dr. Mike Israetel, Nick Shaw, and the team at RP, who I've known for many years. And the entire team are incredible people who've always been supportive and generous with me, so I know their character and are easy to endorse. My library contains several RP books, and I've used RP training principles in my workouts and coaching with my clients for many years, long before the explosion in popularity of their YouTube channel, which is worth checking out. RP is the first sponsor I felt remotely comfortable endorsing after over 7 years of podcasting. And if hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to maximize your gains and take the guesswork out of your program. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. If you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got a serious discount for you of up to $50 US. Go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes, and that's rpstrength.com/coats. Use the code COATSRP.
And dude, I lost all momentum and I just couldn't do it after that. I was like, oh my God. I was like, that sucked. That was so terrible. So for me, I'd rather sleep in a little bit more. And now again, like I have the flexibility in what I do that I can block off that, time from like 9 to 11 to go do that. And obviously not everyone has that.
Mm.
So I just generally think if people prioritize fitness, prioritize it earlier in the day, the chances of you doing it consistently will go up if you put it earlier in the day rather than later, because dude, you know how you work, you're doing multiple things. People are juggling kids, careers, all that. Like, shit always pops up. And so if you can just do it earlier in the day, you can hopefully limit some of those distractions.
I've definitely noticed, certainly anecdotally with people I work with, and know if there's kids in the picture, working out early seems to be the boundary you have to create. And this is about
Yeah.
boundary creation, carving it out, right? I personally, I mean, I'll work a fairly long day of clients, and when it comes to weekdays, I prefer to work out in the evening. Now, there's also probably chronotype stuff here. I probably am a bit
Yeah.
more of that like night owl chronotype. So I actually do fairly well on that. I've never done well or felt good. In pockets I've tried to like get up and do the earlier workout thing. Boy, I struggle with that a little bit. So what you're saying is you have to go to the path of least resistance where you have the option, but when that's not available, you have to set a boundary around it. But I can definitely see how, anybody who has kids, life will happen the end of the day. But if you're the person who, the first thing you hit the couch and then all of a sudden there's some sort of mode shift and it's hard to get back off again. And I know lots of people who struggle with that. It
Mhm.
might simply be you can't let yourself hit the couch.
Absolutely. I mean, I've dieted down to compete in shows, and there's a thing where, like, as soon as you sit down, you kind of lose momentum. It's really hard to get back up and get going. Whereas, like, I remember that, like, if you're in some sort of more hardcore diets and energy levels start to drop, it's almost you have to kind of keep yourself moving because as soon as you kind of relax, your body's like, oh, oh, we're done. Yep. Okay. We're just sitting on the couch. So 100% valid there. So sometimes it's just like keeping that momentum going of like you're already moving, you're up and around a lot easier. So it's a very, very real hurdle to get over for a lot of people.
The reason why I wanted you to be the person to talk about this is because, again, we're in Dallas and just seeing how hardwired it was in you. And you're looking at your app. So, and again, this ties in with the sponsorship stuff. And yeah, it's intentional in a sense, but you use your own app to plan the workouts. I remember you're fiddling around with different, cable stuff. We're at the Hidden Gym in Dallas
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and trying to make some stuff work to basically fit the app, and you're modifying some stuff. But you you have these structures, and I think this important theme is you probably reduce the friction of the experience by having something to tell you what to do, and that could be a coach, a program, or in your guy's case, the app, and also the nutrition as well. So, how have you set up these structures and these supports for you to be able to, in the lowest friction way possible, execute on your training and your nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of people just having a plan in place. I think that makes the chances of success again go up a ton. So how I like to operate is it's funny too because RP is known for, evidence-based and really kind of thinking and being very exact about how you want to train and all that. And I hear all that, but I'm kind of like the perfect middle ground because I want simple. I value simplicity. I don't necessarily want to have to think a ton about my nutrition. I don't want to have to think a ton about my training. And so do I use our apps? I use the RP Diet Coach app. I use RP Hypertrophy app every single day because I don't have to think about it. I love having the plan because I'm someone, if I have a plan in place, great. I don't have to think about it. I've got other stuff to think about, right? Work, kids, wife, family, all that stuff. It's like, just give me the plan. I will go and execute it. And I think a lot of people would value from having that plan because if you wing it and you show up to the gym, there's always that voice in your head. You're like, well, what should I do? Oh man, I've had a hard day, or I'm just not feeling it. I'm gonna take it easier. Whereas if you just have the plan in place, you just go and execute that plan. So the hypertrophy app, you get through week one and it automatically programs for you. So you know exactly what you have to do. You don't have to think about it. You just look and you're like, oh, cool. I'm doing, this machine. I need to do 50 pounds. And guess what? Oh, last week I did 13 reps. So this week I'm doing 14, or like it'll bump the weight up for you, based on percentages and stuff. It's like, you don't have to think about it, right? Because a lot of people come in, they're just like, I'm not really sure what to do. That's not the case. We've eliminated that. So all you do is execute the plan, and the app's always going to provide progressive overload. So you're always just doing a little bit more. So you can feel comfortable that you're always doing essentially the most efficient thing that you can in the gym to get results. Like you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm just doing blah, blah, blah. It's like, nope, the app's going to tell you exactly what to do. Here's what you do. And for a lot of people, that's going to provide the structure to increase your probability of success.
And there's something else baked in, and I have had this theme in several episodes not too long ago, and it's load management as a managing injury risk structure. And
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of people who just simply make too significant an increase of load intensity volume, maybe week over week relative to your recent average. And that can increase your injury risk. So if
Yeah,
you have small, manageable increases to challenge week over week, you've got injury risk management baked in. It doesn't mean there's a guarantee you can't get hurt, but it
sure.
does, from an evidence-based standpoint, it does reduce the risk of an injury.
Yeah, totally. I think we've all heard this story of someone that decides they want to get into fitness and then they start running like several miles a day when they've never ran before. It's been years. What happens? They get shin splints. They hurt something. It's like, well,
Well,
like,
you could actually like get rhabdomyolysis doing this. This can be a
sure.
life-threatening thing that can damage your kidneys if you go very extreme amounts of muscle damage by going from
Mhm.
literally nothing to extreme amounts of exercise in a short amount of time.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And so you don't really have to worry about that when you have a plan in place. Like whether you're using our apps, whether you're working with a coach or, you get, good programs out there. I mean, you've got a great program as well. So it's like it's already factored in. Like you don't have to worry about it. The example I always like to use is I know nothing about cars. I know nothing about engines. And so, well, I could take the time to learn about it and do all that, but gee
Mm,
whiz, I don't really want to. And I value my time and I don't want to have to spend, 6 hours watching YouTube videos to learn how to like I don't know, change a carburetor. I don't know. Is that a thing? Probably. Who knows? But it's just the same thing. It's like you don't have to think about it. Guess what? We've done all the thinking for you. Here you go. Here's what you do. You walk in, you just do this. You know you're going to get a good workout, and then you know exactly what you need to do for the next time. And so it eliminates that sort of excuse or that, oh, I'm just not sure, so I'm going to do the easy thing. It's like, no, now you're on track. Exactly what
well,
to do.
now we're getting into something I want to talk about, which is the concept of buying back your time, because we'll get into like what it does for your mental state and your family in a second, but there's several ways that I've been trying to clear room to either A, do more work or create more leisure for me. Let's use this podcast, for example. So I'm going to shout out my buddy, my producer. His name is Chris Little. He's great. And when I went to rebrand and adjust the format to the podcast and get a new graphic and the weekly graphics, what I found was one of the reasons why I actually put the podcast on a hiatus for a bit. It was just too much work to upload and do all the show notes and all these other extra things that weren't necessarily important for the quality of the listener, but they had to be done in order to upload it. So I talked to Chris. So I pay him, and he's a pro. He does this work for a lot of people. So if anybody here is like thinking about starting a podcast or has one, I actually want you to connect with him. He's great at this stuff.
Awesome.
So he's been listed every episode for a long time. So he's going to be sitting there all happy right now. So, but what this did is, yeah. there's a cost came out of my pocket initially. Okay, fine. It was worth the investment, but it got me back into this doing the stuff that I love, which is these conversations,
Mhm.
sharing and highlighting people like you, like Crystal. I want to wave Crystal Guevara around to everybody because I just think she's that incredible. I've had her speak at my event the last couple of years. She's dynamite, right? It lets me do that. But then what turned around is because I've got this rolling again and the listenership has been growing, it's been doing really well. Then it created the opportunity to have sponsors. And you were the first
Mhm.
person to propose this idea. And then now I'll have two new ones to announce very soon. And these are both things that are great and they align with me. And so all of a sudden, that means I can now pay for and do well on that side of the thing because I made the initial commitment to quote buy back my time, and that frees me up to do more coaching and more time for me. So how what other ways have you done this so that way you've been able to buy back your time to create more room? And has putting your training and nutrition through the apps more on autopilot given you more back in your life for your family?
So the first part about buying back your time, I would just say a good starting point is for people to kind of figure out, hey, what's my salary? Like how much do I make in a given year? And then sort of start to divide that out by, okay, I work on average 40 hours a week for, 50 hours a week, let's call it. Assuming you have some downtime in there for vacations and whatnot. That's 2,000 hours a year. And so you can quickly kind of calculate your time per hour, like what it's worth. And then you start to look at some of the tasks that you're doing. And like for me, one of the examples was, and I don't even like doing this in the first place. My wife loves gardening. She likes doing stuff outside, so it doesn't really apply. But mowing my lawn. I'm like,
Same, same.
yeah,
I hire a guy to do my lawn. Yep.
exactly, exactly. So I'm like, one, I hate it. Two, the cost isn't so prohibitively high that it makes sense to do it. And you can get some other tasks like that. Like I know like a handful of people might have someone that maybe comes over for a few hours a week and maybe does some laundry or helps do the dishes, maybe does some meal prep, something like that. So again, it just depends on the listener, right? Sort of kind of what stage of life they're in, because sometimes you just value your time so much that like yes you could do these things but it's just not worth it. Like you'd rather have that time to relax or like I don't know, read a book with your kids, go for a walk with your spouse, significant other, whatever. So it just allows a lot of flexibility and freedom on that front. Generally speaking, it's for people that are probably a little bit older. Typically people right out of college just don't have the funds to do that, and it makes sense. So it's like your time is kind of the thing you have to sacrifice. But yeah, as you typically get a little bit older, maybe have a little bit more disposable income, you can start to do some of those things. Like, really, really important because then you basically get to pick and choose what you want to do. You just get to generally do more things that you like, which is great, usually from a just mental standpoint. And then the second part was because I don't have to put the bandwidth really into thinking about my diet and training. Yeah, it just allows me to kind of focus more on the other things that I want to focus on. So, I can kind of pre-plan, prioritize the things of like, yeah, this time of the day is when I work out. So I don't have to worry about it if I, need to go to a kid's sporting event at night or, my parents are in town or something like that. Like, oh, like they kind of know, oh, 9 to 11, Nick's usually down in the basement working out. By the way, I work out at home most of the time.
Mhm.
So because it's super convenient. Again, I place a huge amount of value on convenience and simplicity.
Well, that's just a big scale example of investing and buying back your time. Yes, the upfront cost, you need the space for the home gym, but it keeps paying you back in you not having the drive time or wait for a machine that you need. You can design it for the way
Oh
you want to
yeah.
work out. So yes, it's an outlay for sure, but it can be a really great way to bake in the time. And let's say the turnaround time between driving, getting ready to go, driving, whatever. And let's say it turns out to be roughly half an hour each way. There's an hour a day that you're now saving. That's an hour back for something else.
Oh, 100%. That's actually the perfect example because it does take me about 30 minutes to drive to the gym that I go to. Now, when I was in more like hardcore training mode, when I was competing in contest prep, I would strategically make that drive a couple times a week because I sort of needed that environment
Mm.
change. So for some people, like you kind of just need it. Like maybe you don't want to work out at home, maybe you work from home, so you just need to change that environment up. So good value there. Sometimes people just like getting out and talking with other people in the gym or like yeah, there you go. You're raising your hand.
Yep.
You're a very extroverted person. I tend to be a little bit more introverted on average. So like I work from home. I work out at home most of the time. I generally don't have an issue with it because I'm usually doing calls and I'm like, there we go. That's
Mm.
how I get in my people time for the day. Um, so again, there's always going to be a little bit of flexibility there on like what people just like prioritizing all that. But yeah, man, I mean, and even then, so let's say you're like, you know what, just I go to the gym. Hey, I have to drive a half hour each way. It's like the only way, right? You live in a small town, it's the only thing you can do, whatever. So, well, then you can sort of start to optimize some of your time. Maybe you listen to a podcast like this, and usually the episodes are about an hour. So if you drive 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back, like you can listen to half of it on the way there, half of it on the way back. And then at least you're sort of like making good use of that quote unquote downtime. And I think a lot of people like that's why Audible, that's why audiobooks are so popular because, well, listen, if you got to commute to work or you got to commute to the gym, whatever it is, right? And your commute, like maybe just try to make some good use of it rather than, sitting there listening to the news and all they want to do is bicker back and forth. And, well, you're in Canada, so I mean, gee whiz, US Canada right now. It's all sorts of bickering back and forth. So it's like, most people
Not
don't want that or need that.
Oh, not going near it. Like I have to tune that stuff out because it becomes toxic. And I mean, I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
that probably half the people listening right now are listening on a commute. And for years, one of the ways that I got ahead in my career is early in my career, I started listening to free fitness podcasts, the early stuff.
Yeah.
There weren't as many around. And that's how I got introduced to a ton of the people who later on went to become the key educational resources podcast guests, friends of mine.
Yeah.
And because I was constantly doing this, and then I switched over to books, and I was probably doing for a while there 80 books a year plus via
That's a lot.
audio, and the accelerated rate of absorbing these lessons and this knowledge. And now I've kind of gone back to pretty heavily on podcasting again. And this stuff it's like university on your drive in a way, especially if you're going into, well, whatever the hell is relevant to you. Because I've tried to pivot away from the career development side of stuff. But for me, a lot of business books, marketing books were really useful.
Totally. And so you said something there. So things ebb and flow. So I don't think people have to get too locked in on like one particular thing because yeah, like I was huge into podcasts for a while and then I kind of took a break and now I'll just maybe just read a book, just paperback usually, hardcover or whatever. And yeah, sometimes if I am driving to the gym, like I just listen to the radio. I'm just like, that's kind of time I just listen to some music, just chill. But then there's other times where I'm like, yeah, like I'm in the zone. I want to learn. Like there's something really interesting or top of mind. Like, yeah, I'll really get into something and I will, because content's more or less free at all times now. Costs basically nothing to consume. It's great. Like there's always something you can learn. You watch YouTube. I mean, shoot, that's basically how we've made our mark here the last couple of years. Mike's essentially everywhere in fitness now because of YouTube.
I mean, we were talking off air, and I remember when I was with you guys walking around at the Olympia in both 2022 and 2023. And this is before even YouTube had taken off, but as walking around, Mike couldn't take 10 steps without someone coming up and interacting with him. And I recall that Mike had the kind of engaged interaction and recognizability that was far outweighed most of fairly iconic figures in the competitive side. And the only people that sort of rivaled it were people like Mike O'Hearn, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath, Hafthor Bjornsson, right? And now all of a sudden, a couple of years later, the explosion of YouTube and how visible he is. So, yeah, YouTube has treated you guys well. And quite frankly, like, with all this, I've long endorsed, I have RP books. I've had you guys as podcast guests, so I've endorsed you guys for so long. So the YouTube is fantastic, right? There's a reason why it grew. Mike's entertaining, but there's a lot of good info in there.
100% is the abundance mindset. Just give people tons of value and generally good things are going to happen. There's definitely a good lesson we learned there. And, combine education and entertainment. And that's what Mike is because it's a skill. Not everyone has it, but he has it and he's very good on camera and he can just riff at the any second, basically. He's great.
And if anybody's finding this, I mean, Mike was on recently, and I actually got him wound up about his thoughts on because he's obsessed with AI right now.
Oh my
So
God.
I let him loose on like his thoughts on AI and how that stuff, will affect our lives and fitness and health. I want to switch back to something. You talked about the home gym. What would you say to someone who's looking at starting out? Maybe the budget's a little limited. What would be and space a bit limited? What would be the highest leverage things to have in a home gym?
Probably a half rack, a barbell, and some weights. Maybe you could get like a set of adjustable dumbbells. I think those are pretty good now. One of my
Yeah.
colleagues, Andrew, ironically, another Andrew, I stayed at his house last summer and he had a set. And man, I want to say they went from like 5 to 50 or something like that.
Mhm.
And I don't think they're super expensive. And wow, like you've got a ton of flexibility there just from that. You can basically do any upper body, movement with that arms, shoulders, some back stuff, some pushing stuff. And yeah, if you have a half rack, generally, it's adjustable, I think. So you can probably,
Mhm.
get a flat bench. So you need a flat bench, half rack, barbell, a few bumper plates, and like a set of adjustable dumbbells. What's that going to run you? 2K, maybe something like that?
Probably get it in the range. I'm a big fan. I don't own a set, but as far as like the adjustable dumbbells go, they're called, I think they're pronounced Nuobells, and I'm really impressed with them. So I think they're a good combination of easy to adjust and durable. That's usually the thing. So I know power blocks can be really popular. Power blocks are pretty durable. I think adjusting them is a bit more of an effort. You know, I had a pair of Bowflex for home that I borrowed
Mm.
initially when I set up mine, and easy to adjust, but my impression of them is that they're a little bit fragile and they really haven't updated that technology to well. Sorry, Bowflex. So I now, because of the space and the fact I coach people there, I actually for convenience have like I have hex dumbbells. But if you're gonna go get like the full set of hex dumbbells, that requires space and they do get expensive as you accumulate a lot of them.
Yep, totally. So yeah, I think you can get pretty good for just maybe a couple $1,000s, and it doesn't require a whole ton of space. I mean, you could probably put it in the corner of a bedroom or something like that, and you'd probably have enough space. So yeah,
Mhm.
there's good ways to do it, and you don't have to sort of reinvent the wheel. You get the basic compound lifts in there, the squats, the deadlifts, some presses, some rows. You can do all that with just a barbell. You don't have to be super fancy.
The next thing I would add for like beginner at home or anybody would be a TRX. I find they're extremely
Mm.
versatile for a lot of stuff, very low cost, doesn't take up much space. You can hang it from the rack. I think if you're going to go to the next, okay, so what would you do? Let's say someone's got a little bit more space and a little more budget. What would you add next?
I'd probably go like a full rack. So
Mm,
I don't have a ton of space in my home gym. So I have to be pretty, aware of the space. So I have dumbbells from 5 to 50.
mm,
And what I actually did was, because most of the time I'm training upper body at home, I invested in, I think I go up in 2.5 pound increments until 45 or 50
mhm,
because it made sense for me. Again, I'm very prioritized focus, training for hypertrophy, and I even grabbed micro gains. They're fractional plates,
mhm,
so you can get 1 pound, 1.25, and 2.5. So again, I can even go from 35 to 36.25 to
mm.
37.5. So like I can do all this incremental stuff, which when you're doing dumbbell work, like you know how it is, like you go up 5 pounds in dumbbells, like that's a lot of weight sometimes. You go from 20 to 25, like that's a huge jump.
Mm.
So some cool stuff in there. So I've got a rack, I've got a flat bench, I've got like a 45-degree back raise. It's a good way to get
They're
in some
not
lower
big.
back
They're
use.
not big. They are
Exactly.
they're pretty small. Yep.
I have a, sissy squat machine because same
Mm.
idea, gives you a little bit of variety and doesn't take up very much room at all. So just another different way you can squat. Um, I have a full cable setup
Yeah.
again because to me that was worth it because it's got the lat pull down, it's got cables on both sides. I can do tricep push downs, I can do overhead extensions, I can do all sorts of cable work. And what else do I have? That's most of it. I have a leg press slash hack squat machine.
Me too.
Here's the thing though, it sucks. It, excuse my language, it fucking sucks. It does neither of them well at all. I would have been much better off to just get one, just pick my favorite and
Hmm.
just got that. Again, most people, that's going to be pretty expensive to get one of those,
Yep.
takes a lot of space. So, funny enough, now they've got these, I think it's like Revolt Fitness. Maybe there was another one, but like you can get like a landmine kind of thing if you wanted to do that. I have the belt squat one because I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It just gives you some more variety. It doesn't really take up much space. I just bought the kind of like a side race thing, so it kind of clips onto your rack, and you can do like like the Atlantis side raise machine, which is like
Hmm.
probably the best machine ever for shoulders. So it mimics that, and again, it doesn't really take up too much space. So it's just being aware of different choices of I don't have a ton of space, so I have to kind of get something that can do multiple things. So it's just more efficient.
The your point about the leg press hack squat, I have one of those as well, and the hack squat for me is useless. It's unfortunate, it just is. The leg press, its limitations. It works really well for clients.
Yep.
It has limited capacity to load plates on it because of its size. The
Yep.
foot pad is a little bit smaller, so it works in this case. Another example, so I also have a dual leg extension hamstring curl machine. Now the leg extension's pretty good. The resistance profile for both sucks because it's designed as a two-in-one. So for the leg extension, it works
Yeah.
fine. For the
Yeah.
hamstring curl, I actually have to get it and manually add or release pressure to make it work for clients. Works great for clients. If I'm alone, it sucks. So
Yep.
there's a trade-off of this stuff. So, but I don't think that these pieces are probably going to make sense for most people. Here's one that I actually was impressed with, and I'll give them a shout out. It's a company called Freak Athlete, and they have a 6-in-1 Hyper Pro bench, and it can be a glute ham raise. It could be just as a 45-degree hyper. You can do it for a Nordic
Huh.
hamstring curl. Uh, the GHD, the GHR, you add on this attachment, and then they actually have an additional attachment that can be
Yeah.
a leg extension or hamstring curl. So, and it can fold up and like be put up against a wall. So in terms of its space profile, and I found that like its cost wasn't even that crazy. So I'm impressed with this machine that does a couple of other things sort of along these lines. So as for more advanced lower body training, I'm super impressed with it. I like it.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah, I think gym equipment for people that train at home has really improved. I would say probably COVID played a role in that, but it seems like
Mm.
there's a bunch of good stuff out there now.
Good. Let's go back around to the travel stuff. So, with you travel a bit to public speak and your company, I mean, you and Mike don't live in the same place, so you'll
Mhm.
end up probably at stuff like the Olympia again. But yet, when I was with you, you were dialed in. So, how do you make sure that you're hitting nutrition and training when you're traveling?
Yep. Sometimes I'll train at like hotel gyms, and especially if I'm doing just upper body stuff, you can generally get a lot of stuff done if they have some dumbbells. Because what's a typical hotel gym? It's going to have some dumbbells and like some treadmills. Worst case, you need to get in some steps. You can go do that. You can walk on the treadmill. I encourage walking outside, especially in a new city or downtown. Cool. Go out, see some
Mm.
stuff. It's usually fun. But you get some dumbbells. Like again, you can do arms, you can do shoulders, you can do a good amount of upper body stuff. You can superset stuff if you need to. So like you can add some intensity techniques and make stuff work with just a pair of dumbbells. So not super worried about that. If you're a little bit more hardcore focused about training, just look up some gyms. So I was in Phoenix not too long ago. I found that there was some gym, I don't know, 5-minute walk from the hotel I was staying at. Looked at it online. I was like, this seems pretty cool. And then I walk over there, pretty early because, it's great when you're on the East Coast, you go to the West Coast, like you can be up early and get to the gym early and you're, on your normal time. So that was great. And then come to find out, I walk in and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, how much does a day pass? She's like, oh, you're staying at a hotel nearby. I'm like, oh, yes, I am. I'm staying at this one, like 2 blocks away. She's like, oh, it's free. It's like, oh, great. So, yeah, that worked out well. It's usually not too hard nowadays to find a good gym to train at, especially if you're going to like a decent sized city. It shouldn't be too hard. Nutrition, on the nutrition side, I like to pack some of the following things. Usually I'll take some like jerky with me, maybe some nuts, some protein bars. Sort of pick the ones that you like best. Big fan of Quest bars. You don't have to use Quest bars. Quest Hero bars taste really good. You pick the brand that you like. It's kind of whatever. Um, and typically, what I would do in the past was you can't travel with RTDs, and so what I would do. And funny enough, when we were down in Dallas, I don't think you were in the car. I think you rode back with someone else from dinner, but it
Mm.
was me, Luca, and Sean.
Yeah.
And I was like, we were leaving dinner. We were driving back to the hotel. I'm like, Luca, we gotta stop at a gas station. I'm like, I need to get some RTDs. I need to get some protein shakes. And so we did. You stop at the gas station. They're usually in like the $5 to $6 range. Like you just can't really get cheaper than that. It's like fine, whatever. I don't travel so much that like that's a huge deal.
Mm.
Well, you get 4 or 5 of them right there. Well, there you go, 25, $30 just to kind of have that covered. But we actually have something that RP was a part of. It's a pretty cool thing. We were initially quite skeptical of this because we were like, huh, it's a protein shot. It is 20 plus grams of protein in a 3-ounce shot. Why 3 ounces? Because it fits under TSA. So I can travel with these. They cost, if you buy a couple cases, you're looking at something like a tad over $3 a shot.
That's
And so when
great.
you it's not bad. If you just buy one case, it's I think like 375 or 380. Again, still under $4. better than if you had to buy airport or like convenience store gas station RTDs. You're still beating that. Because like a core power has 26 grams of protein, it's usually $5.
That's usually what
Gross.
I go for, is I go hunting for core powers anytime I
Exactly.
travel and I put a bunch in the hotel fridge.
Same here. Exactly. So this is a new product. It's called Genius Shot. Just launched not too long ago. Feedback is really great. It's surprisingly good. Excuse me. I've yet to meet anyone that hasn't been surprised at how well it tastes because it's made out of BLG, beta-lactoglobulin. It's a derivative of whey protein. And so you're able to get this sort of new technology in it that lets you put it in such a small amount and still gives you, 20 plus grams of protein in 3 ounces. So it's really, really cool, taste really good. Like I'm actually a huge fan of them. Right now, there's two flavors, orange cream and blue raspberry. Put them in the fridge, like chef's kiss. Tastes really, really good. They're still very good room temperature. So like you can throw them in your gym bag. You can, you get done with a workout on the road. You can pull one out. Like there you go. You get in 20 plus grams of protein right after your workout. No big deal. So really excited about that because I think it has some cool potential there. And the BLG is pretty new and pretty novel, and it's a really good source of protein. And again, like a lot of times, taste matters. And nowadays, fitness has blown up so much that like a lot of this stuff tastes good, which is great. Because I'm sure you remember way back in the day, like it all tasted like crap.
I mean, I remember, God, the old protein bars for sure, and they
Sure.
they were so tough, and the
Oh yeah.
taste was terrible. I mean, now you get stuff like grenade bars or Snicker protein bars or whatever. The Quest
Hmm.
stuff. The Quest was the one that really came along and changed everything, and then now there's been an
Hmm.
explosion in these things. So a little bit of fun. So obviously I'm in Canada here, and so you, me, Sean Pastouche, and Luca Hosvar and Mike Dola have a group chat. And so you, of course, got them all some Genius Shot to try it out, and they're all freaking out about how good these things are.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you can't send them to Canada yet. So here I am. I haven't had a chance, and I'm pissed hearing you guys go on about these things. But I'll get to see in a couple of weeks when I see you in Dallas. Hopefully, I
Yeah.
get to try it.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for these because of the amount that I travel. I literally want these things. Everybody
Hmm.
keeps saying how good they taste. So that's an easy no-brainer. So yes, we've turned this bloody episode into a bit of an advertisement. I'm sorry, guys. I don't care. I think it's all value added, and
But
it's
it's only an advertisement of stuff that, and this speaks to like the sponsors you have, but in nowadays social media, you can't promote crap because people see right through it. And so you just have to lean on stuff that like you actually use. So for, RP, it's like, well, I use our apps every single day. So it's the most organic marketing of all time. Like I use Genius, I have at least one a day every single day because it's just so convenient. And again, like, so some of the feedback or criticism of it that I've seen is like, oh, it's expensive. And it's like, yes, if you are 18 years old, you do not value the convenience factor of things. And it's like, because you don't have the funds to do that, it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. You can't buy back your time, so to speak. Like, yes, could I set up little baggies of protein powder and put them in my suitcase and take them with me. And then I've got to get a shaker bottle and I've got to pour water in it and I've got to do all this. And like, yes, I could do that. Guess what? It's not worth the fucking $1 extra that I would just pay to have a Genius Shot. Boom, crack it open, slam it back, takes 2 seconds, and then I'm done. Like, I want convenience at this point in my life. I pay for convenience and simplicity.
And you don't want to know what's not convenient is random bags of white or brown powder going through customs
And
or
don't,
whatever flying.
oh,
I
because
don't
yeah,
think that's
your
a good
customs.
I don't think that's a good idea. I don't recommend
Yeah.
trying it, right?
Totally. Yeah, good call out there because I'm used to, mostly just domestic travel. Although I will say we sort of had, they were in sort of experimental bottles back then, but my wife and I went to Italy last fall. And, check this out. Like I had, 'cause I knew we were going to Italy and I'm like, okay, it's probably going to be hard to find protein. I had jerky, I had protein bars, I had pre-packed protein powders, I had a handful of the Genius shots, although it was like the prototype version, so like they looked really weird. And like I had everything. I would even go to the local grocery stores and like try to decipher. I'm like, okay, I think this means protein. Grab some of like the Italian ones. It actually was solid. Interesting thing is in Europe they do like protein pudding. That's pretty good. I'll say it was pretty good. I sampled pretty much every flavor they had. It was pretty solid. But again, like nothing just beats the convenience of that, and it fits under TSA, so there's just no issues with it. And like, listen, you're going to be gone for, I don't know, 2, 3 days traveling. You throw in three, four, five of those because you buy them in 12 packs online, and like ends up being a pretty good trade-off there.
And you can probably then turn around and eat the meals you're going to enjoy because one of the things I have found challenging, and I want to hear your thoughts on this because
Hmm.
we went to, if I remember correctly, we went to Cava at one point.
Hmm.
So we're trying to pick out like, healthier options. But I've seen you and I've dined with Mike, and you guys will oftentimes just order something that's you have the ability to estimate, all right, well, this is roughly about this much protein, this much rice, et cetera. You guys tend to keep it a little on the simpler side. So how do you deal with, getting food and meals while traveling?
Yeah, yeah. Pick a place like Cava, however you want to pronounce it. Chipotle.
Mhm.
Um, Man, what are some other? I mean, there's probably a handful of them. Those are the two that jump off, right away to me. Again, you go to like a steakhouse, you can almost certainly get some type of lean protein. You can get some steamed veggies. You can stay on track. It just depends on what you want to do. And then also, like, I know you said there's the demographic of your podcast, maybe a little bit more like, general fitness, general population. It, the way you look at it is like it's one meal, right? So if you're going out with friends and it's a burger, it's some wings or something like that, it's like you don't have to beat yourself up over it. Maybe you just eat like a little bit less earlier in the day if you know you're really gonna go crazy, and or there's a birthday party and I don't know, maybe there's drinking, stuff like that. Like you just maybe ease off a little bit earlier in the day. It's not that big of a deal, but if you want to eat healthy, and listen, it goes back to, our things a priority? Well, this stuff's a priority for me. So the types of restaurants I'm generally going to go to are probably going to be ones that have better options. You can get a salad, you can get some grilled chicken in it. Kava, you get like a bowl of rice and some lean protein, some chicken. Like it's great. Like, by the way, I love those meals. Same thing at Chipotle. It's not hard to do.
And there was one more thing I was going to say about the idea of the genius shot that appeals to me. When you're flying, you know what I don't like doing is peeing a whole bunch on flights. I just do not like that. So,
Yeah.
you know, and you got to watch dehydration, but like at least lower fluid intake for something like this. That's a funny little bonus for me, right? It's like I
Mhm.
want a coffee and then a water, and I'm like, ah, shit, okay. One thing I definitely will not touch on airlines is alcohol, and I drink so little now. It's got to
Mhm.
be like some
Mhm.
sort of important social occasion. But yeah, I can't do booze on flights. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, yeah, you got to be up all the time. Yeah, for sure. And especially if you're not on the aisle seat, then like
Yep.
you got to annoy everyone every time you get up. Yeah, yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah, it's just, convenience, man. Convenience, you increase your probability of success when you make things easier on yourself. That goes back to having a plan in the gym. That goes back to having a plan for meal prep, right? So if you meal prep and you take stuff into work, like, it really doesn't matter if Susie, a couple cubicles down, brings in Krispy Kreme donuts because like you have food. When you don't have food, you don't have that plan in place. The probability of you saying yes to those donuts or that junk food is huge. So it's like the more planning that you do, the greater the probability that you will be successful in your fitness endeavors. Simple as that.
Where do you allow yourself to go off plan? Do you have any guardrails to keep you from going all or nothing?
Just talked about this a little bit. Went out for pizza, burgers, wings. So probably my two favorite foods, if we want to, quote unquote, cheat meals. I don't know if that's a bad phrase nowadays or not in the fitness world. Who knows? But
It's one of the pedantic things people like to fight about, but
yeah,
I think it's fine.
yeah. Pizza and wings, man. Those are my two things. So generally, if I do get pizza, generally I will get something with like grilled chicken on it, or usually like some meat on it. So I'm at least covering some protein there. Genius shot is obviously something you can sneak in there because you can basically take any meal, and let's say if it doesn't have protein in it, well, like all you do is add in one of these, and you've just taken what could be an unhealthy meal to, like, you've just added 20 grams of protein or so. Like now you've kind of rounded out that meal. So again, it just gives you more flexibility. But yeah, those are the two things I probably go the most crazy on, and especially now with just modern GLPs. Is a lot of times if you do have a meal like that that's heavier in fat and calories, you just can't eat more later on in the day too. So it kind of cancels itself out. Like it's just really hard to overeat. That being said, if you're not using those, you can still kind of take the same philosophy. Like I said earlier, you just maybe eat a little bit less during the day. I will say the one caveat I always give, and again, our demographic tends to be people that are been around the block a time or two in the fitness world. They've dieted down or whatever. So I'm less worried now. But like if you're new to it and you it could lead to some interesting kind of mental frames if you're undereating and then overeating. Like that's something to be
Mhm.
mindful of for sure.
I think you can take that into almost the fasting. And I've long thought that for the wrong kind of person, fasting can be attractive because you now have a socially acceptable and dressed up eating disorder in some cases, right? I don't think that's everybody. I don't like to demonize it outright,
Yeah.
but for the person who's already vulnerable there and they hears this, like, wait a second, here's this, like, and a lot of it's junk science for the people who are saying it's somehow better. No, it's all in the management of calories, right? But if fit your scheduling energy levels are fine, it's fine for some people. But for some people, it may manifest as, hey, this is a validated way for me to restrict and then binge.
Yeah. Yeah. You just gotta be mindful of that. There's kind of always pros and cons to all these approaches. And generally it's a pretty small number of people that would be susceptible to that, but just, always worth calling out so people are aware of it.
Good. All right. So let's see what else I got here for you. Hmm, forgive me there. Okay, so how can we avoid being so rigid and over optimized with some of the stuff, maybe we talked about so that we don't become so fragile
Mhm.
that we can be thrown off into an off mode.
Easy. Consistency is more important than perfection. Like, I think people would be surprised if they kind of followed me around of, oh, you're not like logging every single thing that you eat. No, because I'm comfortable. Like if I'm just a little bit off, I'm okay with that. The exception would be if I was a couple weeks out from a bodybuilding show. Yeah, I'd be a little bit more dialed in. But unless that's, the case, I'm not sweating the little minor details. I think some people just get so caught up in that they want to log every single thing because even in the RP Diet Coach app, I don't log my foods in the app. I just know my meal macros. And again, I eat a lot of the same things because I value just consistency and routine. So like I kind of know, or if I go a little bit off plan, I've been doing this long enough that I can kind of, guess. I can be like, oh, well, guess what? We're at Kava. I'm like, yeah, that's, probably about 30 grams worth of protein. I'm probably good. Something like that. I think it's just majoring in the minors to get caught up. And like, here's the deal. If you start looking into how nutrition labels work too, because again, I don't want to make this too much about Genius Shop, but 23 grams of protein, 90 calories. So people are like, well, like 23 times 4 is 92. Why does it say 90? That's just how nutrition labels work. If it's under 50 calories, you round to the nearest five. If it's over 50 calories, you round to the nearest 10. And that's assuming nutrition labels are right, because by and large, nutrition labels have a margin of error. I don't know what the exact rules are, but like I think nutrition labels are allowed a certain margin of error as well. So it's like even if you are tracking everything to the extreme, bro, you're still not accurate. People forget that. People don't even realize that. And it's just like chill out. Just try to hit your general overall macros and calories for the day and get in your protein. You're most of the way there. Just don't get so caught up because that like extra mental bandwidth to really focus on like, oh, was that 32 grams of protein or 34? Who the F cares? I have no idea. No one can validate that unless you're gonna like go do what's the bomb kilometer type, I'm not even saying it right, but
I
but
can't say bomb calometer, and I think I
there
screwed
we
that
go.
up. Yeah.
It's like, no, yeah, it's just like, stop. You're just so far removed. And it's like, what added benefit do you get of doing that? It's like, well, one, you stress the crap out of yourself worrying so much. It's like, what extra return do you get on that? Fraction of a percent? Is that worth it? Like, you're talking such diminishing returns on that. It's not worth it. Just do your best, be pretty close. As long as you're not going wildly overboard, you're gonna be good.
I'll give another example of where I think over optimization gets in trouble. And I've heard Andy Galpin talk about this a lot, and I love Andy's frame on this
He,
on his
he's
podcast.
great, man. He's great.
He's great, is sleep. And so if you have so much complexity in your sleep ritual, then you're creating a lot of friction. And maybe if you're in the same environment all the time, you're black. And I think things like blackout curtains, good idea, keeping your room temperature a little cooler. So one of the first things I do when I get to a hotel is I turn the room temperature down. That's a big
Sure.
thing for me, right?
Yeah.
But and I remember I was at an event in Minneapolis, and it was the hotel was in the Mall of America, and the curtains weren't great, and the lights were nuts.
Ooh.
So, and I actually had trouble sleeping. So that sucked, right? And you're out of your normal bed, and that can affect you. But something I do now is I just have a small sleep mask and I can travel with that easily. And I find that
Mm.
helps a lot. So, but if we have very elaborate rituals, a lot of complexity, a lot of the optimization stuff, and then of course you go travel and you can't bring all of your things, your white noise machine or what have you, then because of the contrast, then you can have anxiety about not having a perfect setup and it can probably leave you worse. So I think there's and again Andy's talked about this. There are certain type of people, I think doctors, military, they actually need to be able to like go to sleep almost any suboptimal condition to be able to keep up. And I think there's a skill there.
Hmm.
And I think
Hmm.
that too much optimization and too much
Yeah.
ritual adds a layer of complexity that's very easy to disrupt if you're not in your optimal environment. And I think
Totally.
that could be true of your nutrition. I think it could be true of your training. I think versatility, and again, we talked about like just the app, and I watched you go, okay, trying to figure out how to set up a
Exactly.
machine or cables to basically get the theme of what you needed to do, and you were able to
Hmm.
figure it out pretty quickly, right?
100%. I actually was going to use that example, so I'm glad you brought it up because it's like, okay, so the RP hypertrophy app programmed in, yeah, I forget what it was. I think it was a bicep exercise. And I was like, oh, okay, like they don't have that exact thing here. No big deal. Hey, what kind of bicep machine do they have here? I played around with it a little bit. I was like, this just doesn't feel right. It's not going to quite work. I'm like, okay, cool. We'll go grab some cables. I'll just sub that in. And boom, like basically 2 clicks. You sub in an exercise, you pick the one, boom, it's right in there. And then it's like, well, okay, well, I was supposed to be doing 60 on my machine at home. Like, what does that translate to here? I don't know, but I kind of do a warm-up set or two, get a feel for it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to do about, you know, 12 to 15 reps. Okay, cool. I did a couple warm-up sets. I think about this weight, I can do that. If I'm off a rep or two, who cares? It's not a big deal. As long as you're training pretty hard most of the time, you're getting the best bang for your buck when it comes to training.
Yep. And if you have to do a few extra reps to get to near failure on something, as long as you're pretty close to failure, that seemed to be the overwhelming
Ex-
piece of evidence out there. It's like if you can get pretty close to failure on your working sets of stuff, and we also know rep range doesn't matter, so all good.
Yeah, it's like, well, was I 3 RIR or 2 or 1? Man, I don't know. I've been training a long time. I have a hard time with that. I'm like, am I pretty close? Yeah, it was getting tough there towards the end. Cool. That's a good spot for me, especially on one-offs, because then it's programmed in for you next time. We're like, okay, well, I did 12 reps here. Cool. Next time I'm hitting 13. So I know I'm getting a little bit closer to that. And guess what? That week after that, I'm getting even a little bit closer. And so, like, that's just the beauty of having a plan in place. So it almost kind of cancels out and takes care of itself over the long run.
So all the stuff we talked about, do you feel that because you've as much as possible autopiloted, put in system structures, bought back your time, what kind of an impact does this have on your success and bandwidth for your work and for time, quality time with your family?
Yeah, I think generally it just gives you more flexibility and freedom because you just kind of have a little bit more mental bandwidth to deal with other things. So I don't like to sweat the small stuff too much, especially when it comes to fitness. Like I mentioned it earlier, it's diminishing returns to put in so much mental effort to get, an extra 1% out of it. It's just usually that's not a good trade-off. I'd rather, you know, theoretically lose that 1%, but like have a lot of mental bandwidth to like not be stressed out about it. To like just kick back and relax and watch some TV or something with my kids. My at my house, we've been watching a TV show called The Middle, and we watch it as a family. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'd never heard of it until I don't know a couple of months ago, but my daughter suggested it, and it's just really funny, man. It's just like a middle America kind of family. Just it's just funny. So like, I'd rather do that, man. I'd rather relax and like, guess what? We all get laughing and we have a good time watching it, and I'm like, easy stuff like that. Like that's the cool stuff.
That's what really matters. All right. Everybody can find you on Instagram at nick.shaw.rp. And of course, there's
Yep.
at RP Strength, which is the big brand. Are there any other resources you want to direct people to? And we've talked a lot about the things, so you could highlight again the stuff that RP has been doing with the apps.
I think the best spot is the RP YouTube channel because whether you're new to fitness or you've been in it for a while, there's probably some good videos for you to watch, and there's just so much content, and it's not boring. It's usually spiced up a little bit with some Dr. Mike humor. So most people take to that; they like it. It provides a little bit of entertainment along with learning a little bit. I mean, that's usually the best spot because if you really want to check out our apps from there, it's usually linked all over the videos and whatnot. So, and again, like YouTube's just such a great tool and resource nowadays for virtually everything. Um, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. Like we got a guy, I'm in a like a Visage group. It's like a business type group, and we were talking about like, one guy just kind of like lays down basically piping to run like electrical wiring, and I was like we were talking one day and I'm like, I bet there's a guy on YouTube for that. It's like I looked it up and like, yeah, there sure as heck was. And he didn't have a huge following, but it's just, man, technology, fitness, it's never really been easier to learn stuff.
There's a guy, and I'm sure it's YouTube. I've not watched it, but I've seen the highlights of this guy, and I think he's probably like Eastern European or something like Turkish or Armenian or something. I don't know, but he's an electrician, I think, and he's always fucking around with electrical stuff. But the highlights are always him connecting two wires, and then it blows up in his hands, and he gets some sort of terrible shock. And he's doing this constantly, and it's some of the most entertaining crap ever. His reactions. So there's something for everybody out there. All right,
Really is.
everybody. Again, this episode, we've talked a lot about the stuff that I openly endorse, but I've openly endorsed long before you guys ever paid me to do so. So that was easy. It aligns. So please go if you're interested in more info about the Hypertrophy app or the Diet Coach app. And I literally have codes for you guys. It was in the ad, but I have codes for you guys to actually save some money if you want to check these things out. They're great. And please go and support Nick and my sponsor, Renaissance Periodization at RP Strength, and go check out their YouTube channel. Nick, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me on. Great to chat.